All right, everyone. Welcome to our morning presentation session. Our session lead is Dorin from Accenture. Dorin leads Accenture's digital identity services in Canada. He helps clients increase the customer base and also satisfy employees' access needs through digital identity. Dorin focuses on identity modernization, improving customer experience, maximize the return on identity technology investments, increasing identity resilience, and enhance control of privileged access. His specialties include leading small to large-scale cyber initiatives while working closely with the ecosystem partners and vendors. And as you can see, Dorin will present Want Security, Think Identity. All right, so I will stop my sharing and give the control to Dorin. Dorin, all yours.
Thank you, Brian. Just confirming that the presentation.
Yeah, everything good. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So, hello everyone, and welcome to this session. I'm glad to participate and address some of the ever-emerging questions about identity security, and more specifically, we'll talk about when we discuss security, why we should think about identity first, and how identity contributes to security, and what makes identity secure. And we'll explore also things about what it doesn't make secure. As such, let's start with the fact that we see a lot in the previous years, especially, and the pandemic obviously expedited some of the concerns. But we saw that identity is facing most of the challenges when it comes to the cybersecurity threats, but and it has to have all the protections in place. But also it becomes the weakest link when it comes to some of the breaches. So we see this two faces of the same item when identity is how now we call it is the new perimeter when it comes to security and protection, facing all the defenses that are needed, and as such, it becomes the best potential defense mechanism when it comes to cyber threat, just because of the nature that it's being exposed to everything. And while it's the best protection and defense mechanism, in the same time, it becomes the weakest link. We see that more than 80% of the breaches that happen, it's basically because of compromised credentials. So with the increased attacks, we see that identity becomes the surface of attack for most of the breaches. And as such, we now have to talk about how identity contributes to security, but at the same time, how to make identity more secure. And we also see that from the recent breaches that it's a significant amount of effort and cost to recover from such breaches. And we did some analysis in the past, and we found that actually it's 30 times more expensive from the cost perspective to remediate than prevent. So before we get into the topic of identity security, what makes identity secure or not, let's just talk about how identity and access management contributes to the overall organization, and what good IAM looks like in our world. And I try to depict from the perspective that we have it depends on how we package the information, can be more or less, but just for the purpose of this conversation, when we talk about security, we say, well, we have the identity management component, we have the access management, we have the privileged access, the directories, and now we have with all the cloud modernization that happening, we have the infrastructure and all the entitlements that comes with the cloud construct. And this is I would say, a simplified view in terms of what IAM constitutes today in an organization. And to make it transform and operate, we essentially we have to look at a couple of key domains and I would say activities to make sure that we start off with an IAM program with the right foot, and we not just transform, but we actually continue into the operating in effective manner. So the foundation of a good IAM still remains that it has to be modern. It has to have streamlined IAM technologies and protocols. And where we usually see it started with a business case, and with as an attribute of good practice to make sure that the business case is sound and we have all the stakeholders aligned. We have to achieve that alignment between the business case vision in terms of the business value that you try to achieve and the technology vision, and this has to be imperative. What we often see is that there is a business need for customer enablement or more security enhancement, whatever that may be from the value that we try to achieve. But when it comes to the technology, we are not ready. And the other way around, we say we have a service to provide, but actually the business didn't quantify the value. We didn't yet define what is needed to achieve and what those objectives are. So to have that alignment, to begin with, it's imperative. To have it purpose built, also it's important. We often see that we jump into IAM program. Everybody's excited to transform, modernize, change, make it more streamlined, but we don't take into account the operation part of it, how we actually will operate effectively. We may have a best of class solution, but when it comes to operations, it's very complicated, it's complex, it's not streamlined, so we're actually accumulating more depth through the operations than the transformation that happens. So that alignment has to be also achieved and enable the operations teams as soon as possible. Organization change, it's another attribute that we have to take care of. We have technology and we have people to make both work together seamlessly and efficient. We have to have a change management that's governed through applying the right governance and the right stakeholder engagement, so to get that alignment as well. Scale to enterprise, that's an interesting one that I thought about. What we often see is that everybody's has a program, organization try to transform, but it's getting to that point in the last mile when there is a exhaustive, or say, effort that we don't see the end of it. So we have to make sure that we apply that consistent, I would say, pressure and timelines, so it doesn't get too condensed at the very end when everybody say, okay, this is not going to happen. So making sure that we scale our solutions and our programs so that it's fully enterprise and not just stalled out at the last mile, and nobody will have any more appetite to take that on and make it scalable to an entire enterprise. The last two probably go hand in hand and say, okay, we implement it, we transform it today, but this is not the final form. It has to always evolve. So we don't, how usually I call it, is that we don't build legacy. We build and implement something that can continuously evolve through innovation, especially at the speed that happens these days. So now that we talk about what IAM could look like and what constitutes for the value from the business perspective, let's see. Okay, what are those components that define or capability that identity contributes to security and more. So let's talk about how identity can enable security. And this is a view in terms of the most common, I would say, capabilities that we see in the identity and access management space, and not necessarily tied to a particular domain, because we have for customers, we have for privilege, we have for identity governance, devices, IoT, you name it. Identity is associated to everything that's being managed from the services perspective. But if we look at the typical components of the modern capabilities that we enable through IAM in nowadays, we can very easily see that those are actually contributing not just from the user experience perspective, not just from automation perspective, but contribute to improving the security elements and the security controls. We have modern standard authentication protocols as OpenID Connect, SAML, and so on. Those are built with system security in mind. So provide those authentications and authorization capabilities. A single sign-on, although it goes hand in hand with what I just said, but it also improves the user experience. MFA, which becomes the good practice nowadays when it comes to authentication pattern. Consent management, not necessarily security, but we see how identity now contributes to consent for privacy perspective. Also, how identity can help with some of the elements from the privacy to enable the right to be forgotten. How else can you identify data if it's not associated to identity, whether that's an individual or not? Password authentication is an interesting one, and the reason I included here is that we try to get rid of the password. That's everybody objective now, but it's one of those attributes that made the security and user experience converge into one attribute. We always had this challenge before. More security, then you have less user experience. You have more user experience, and potentially you have more intrusive security controls, and we try to find the balance. The passwordless authentication, I think it's one of those domains that tries to achieve both. You have a perfect or better user experience, but you also have better security overall. I'll get to some of the elements when we talk about, let's say, for the risk profiling. It helps if we provide a risk ranking or a risk profile to an identity through the actions that have been performed, or through the entitlements or the access that's been provisioned. It's either it's a more elevated or not, and the risk profile can change. But associating a risk and profile attributes to identity can also help some of the supporting processes in fraud prevention. So getting that telemetry from an identity perspective and feeding into your risk engine for fraud, that now helps with the security posture, not just at the organizational level, but at transactional level as well. I'll go through some other interesting things. Let's say when it comes to cloud, everything in the cloud is associated with identity. Even the networks, the devices, you name it. So having a good visibility on the on the cloud construct those identities also gives the organization the ability to understand what's the risk posture. We have too much or too little. Session monitoring and vaulting, those are some of the elements for the privileged access. When we have too much, when we have the ability to understand what a privileged access is being actioned with, and when it's a secure vaulting, not necessarily for identity, but for things like application, application connectivity and services. So having that identity monitored and vaulted gives a better security, not just for individuals, but also from application perspective. So going through some of these typical elements, we see that, okay, identity, the capabilities from identity access management perspective benefit security from the controls perspective. And we also say that identity can help with enabling preventive, detective, and corrective controls. And this is where I think it provides the best value, because it can span the capabilities from all those types of controls. Most importantly, it can automate. So we all know that from security perspective, an automated control is better than a manual control. So achieving that automation in our IAM journey helps to achieve better controls across those three types. So what does not make an identity, I would say, secure? Where identity cannot help the security posture? My answer to that is a foundational basic one. If your identity capability does not contribute to the security control, it probably doesn't help you much. And so if it doesn't help with a preventive control for fraud management, as an example, then it's probably not. It doesn't enable your security posture. For the security posture, when it comes to, or from the compliance perspective, the certification campaigns, those will be a good example. If it's not tied to an identity, so if you're not enabling that, then you're basically not enabling your corrective controls for access certification. And the last thing which I left at the very end is, if your identity does not enable trust, probably also it's not contributing enough. Trust is a key word in my opinion now, and we'll talk a little bit of identity in the zero trust framework, since zero trust is what drives most of the I would say of the security programs, where it's a new way of defining, let's say, the security frameworks at the organization, and we'll see how identity fits into that zero trust journey. But to get there, we have to talk quickly about what is trust, and I also go to the fundamentals in terms of the definition of trust. Trust is a firm belief in that the reliability, truth, and ability of strength of someone or something. And someone and something in this case is our identities. So my take from this is that trust is how we use identity to enable that we have a firm belief that we have reliability, truth, and ability or strength. So if we have a service, if we have an individuals, if we have an authentication action, how we make sure it's reliable, it's truthful, it's that service provides ability and strengths, basically performance to manifest itself. So if we look in the zero trust journey, and we'll talk a little bit of specifics in terms of some of the fundamental, I would say, engagements or initiatives that you have to take on to the zero trust journey. But what I'm trying to say through this view is that zero trust has its many components. One of the key objectives is to you reducing risk. To get to the risk reduction posture, it's not an overnight exercise. It's a journey that starts with the fact that sometimes we cannot just have the same technologies, the same processes, the same frameworks that we used currently and say, all right, we'll just relabel it and make it, just call it a trust or zero trust framework. It doesn't work this way. The whole purpose of the zero trust is through the definition that, as I said, is that making firm belief that all the time we have reliability, ability, and truth. So we probably need to modernize what we currently have and see how can we enable those attributes of the zero trust concept to make it happen. And that meaning modernizing, retiring some legacy, improve automation, because what I just said a couple of minutes ago is that an automated control is always better than a manual control across those three types. We enable the corrective, the detective control. So we take the foundation right with the mindset that I can now move to a stage where I can at all time have that firm belief that I have a trust. Next, basically through the journey, we'll have to think about how we innovate and how we scale. So essentially, now that we come from the basic corrective detective controls, how now we make it more preventive, and what innovative ideas, not just from the technology perspective, but how we readjust, how we change ourselves, that we get identity to be that facilitator when it comes to providing meaningful information for supporting process such as fraud, for consent management, for privacy, and so on. So getting to that mindset that we have that single view of on the identity that can contribute to those processes and domains, and then we scale it. So once we have the foundation right, how we get more coverage. And this is where it gets very complicated. In my opinion, this is where a lot of organizations fail. They've been through one exercise and they said, okay, this was too much. I don't think I can handle to do it more. The truth is that the first time is more complicated. Then the more you do, the less it gets. So it gets to that economy scale. So basically, the more coverage you get, the easy it gets from the rollout perspective. However, where I see a lot of things fail is just becoming so big that it's very complicated to manage. So that's why keeping that innovation mindset in terms of, okay, how do we change it ourselves so we don't become too rigid in our processes and in our technology. Think of what I've just said about 10 minutes ago, that we don't build legacy. We have to build something that can also has a next form. And once we get to that, now we can say, okay, we have achieved that state where I have enough visibility and I have now orchestrations capability to provide a risk view on security, on operations, on fraud, and so on. So what I've seen in the past, a lot of customers and organizations saying, well, we'll just relabel the zero trust. We'll relabel what we have now and just call it the zero trust. We'll just change it a little bit and we'll say we're in the position to reduce risk. I often see that failing. So keep in mind that it's a journey that we have to go through. Now, how actually identity can enable that? So, and I explained a little bit in the previous slide about through the journey. But these are some of the I would say the the tactical or practical, I would say the capabilities or initiatives that will help you in the zero trust, and not necessarily just the zero trust, but getting that contribution to security. Automation and orchestration. I cannot emphasize that enough. It's something that we have to achieve: better automation, better security controls and orchestration. Basically, having the ability to manipulate and to feed engines and other processes. Abiding to that mindset of we have least privilege all the time construct, and getting the assurance levels. We've seen too often that we're managing access, but when we look at that access, we see it's not least privileged. It's over provisioned. It's too much. It has conflict in it. It doesn't apply. The segregation of duties are not applied correctly, and so on. And assurance level is not maintained. And this is important. So maintaining the assurance level across the entire flow or the entire transaction is important. Basically, through an example, we can log into our domain, but then which is a trust is established, and we have an assurance level. Depending how I establish that authentication through MFA or whatever. So we can have that main level of assurance, but then we log into a critical application that has only local accounts. So then we break that assurance level. Essentially, we have something that in the domain we establish that trust, but then we go to a critical application that's broken because now it's all local. So having that mindset in terms of how do I create that assurance level with the least privilege concept, and how I maintain it through the entire flow, it's very important. Having that ability to continuously do the risk analytics, it's important. How we enforce policies, and I just gave some examples with the least privilege and assurance level, how we enforce those. And one thing that I was thinking is that how we monitor the identity health, and this is not just from the risk perspective, is that do we have too much, too little identities? Are they meaningful? Do we have orphan accounts? We don't. So keeping that mindset that what defines an identity health for your organization is also helpful. And by establishing trust, I think I'll just explain it, that once established, you have to maintain it. I know we have only a couple of minutes left, so I'll get to the so what, so that I can give a couple of minutes for questions. In my opinion, is that we talked about all of this, but what is really the net of things? And in my opinion, is we achieve identity security when we establish and maintaining trust at all time. And this is, I would say, an objective that I think can help organization think through when there is a design thinking session or a design principle that needs to be applied, where there is a program, and we have to take into account security, not necessarily through the zero trust framework. I'm not saying that everybody has to use it, but the thing that we achieve a secure identity, and identity can contribute to security, is when we keep the mindset that we establish a trust between services and an individual with a service, a public with a technical component, and when we establish that trust, we maintain it all the time. Thank you. I'll take a couple of questions.
All right, thank you very much, Dorin. So this is a very comprehensive presentation, and we learned a lot of terminologies related to identity. And especially, I think one of your slides shows there are so many components, right? So many people may have a misconception, think, okay, identity just manage your user ID and a password, but really there are so many areas you can look at it. And that's also the reason we provided this identity security summit, really because there are so many topics we can comment on. All right, so considering time, we can only cover one question, I think. So the question will be, speaking about the complex environment, for example, like a multi-cloud, including Azure, or all those are public cloud, and you may have a private cloud and also have a on-premises environment. So how do you manage identity effectively in this multi-cloud environment?
Right. I don't think we have enough time to cover that. But what I can say is that in the cloud journey, obviously think about leveraging as much of the native possibilities that the cloud, I would say, construct is giving you. However, think about my short answer will be, if I move to the cloud, what do I think? What do I need? What else do I need from identity perspective? So to manage the multi-cloud, especially when we have a multi-cloud, we don't see yet, let's say one, I don't want to give names, but a cloud provider or construct that will give you the ability to manage the multi-cloud. So it's always something that you need from identity perspective to manage the identities into a multi-cloud. However, you can make one cloud, let's say your identity provider, and everything else to be just a service provider. So you still can have that ability that you keep all the identities of the authoritative source into one client, into one cloud, and make it as identity provider across other clouds. But then you would need to have something in between to make that bridge, right? And especially it's more complicated when we have a private cloud, we have on-prem. Nothing happens overnight. You don't move to the cloud and you get rid of your data center. That's a journey. So even for that transformation journey, you will still need to have I would say an independent IAM capability that manages identities, manages your access, your entitlements in the cloud, and provide that visibility. What's most important, don't do it at the very end. Don't move it to the cloud and just think, okay, I think I have no problem. Think about it, put the identity question up front. It's like, as I move to the cloud, I leverage native cloud identity services, which is great. What else do I need if I have a multi-cloud construct? So put that question earlier than at the very end, because at the very end it's very hard now to change the form and how those identities now been propagated across all your clouds. So think of streamlining and having all identities in one place. You're managing accesses through one place, and you provide that visibility through one pane of glass. So put those questions up front and not at the very end.
All right. So basically, is keywords I got from your explanation. One is it's a journey. It's not like a one-time thing. The other really is you need to design in early stage, right? So rather than wait until you have a cloud, you have to put in those questions and design consideration in the early stage.
Exactly.
All right, cool. All right, so that's all the time we have. Thank you very much, Dorin from Accenture. So if you want to have more questions for Dorin, you can follow up. We also record this session, and you have another chance to watch Dorin's presentation. All right, thank you very much, Dorin. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Brian.
Okay, bye for now.